The Bricks Collective had lost another battle. This time, it was Sector 9, defeated by a group of untrained Earth plumbers and one man named Owen who wielded a chainsaw. Commander Zeth of the Bricks Collective nearly dropped his nutrient container. In shock. "Not Special Forces plumbers?" he asked. "No, sir," his assistant replied, antennae twitching nervously. "Just regular plumbers." One still wore his tool belt, and Owen, he didn't say a word. He just started up his chainsaw, and well, our troops ran away. For 20 years, the Bricks Collective had slowly conquered Earth, confident in their superior soldiers and energy weapons. Humans seemed disorganized, obsessed with sports, caffeine, and barbecue sauce. Their military response was outdated: old guns, camouflage nets, and drones held together with tape. So the Bricks changed plans, focusing on civilian areas instead of military targets. Surely ordinary people would surrender quickly. They were wrong. Earth's civilian population became the invaders' nightmare. Not in a way that any war college taught, but in a way no one expected. Commander Zeth had seen the footage. A group of retired men in their 60s had hijacked an alien vehicle using garden tools and pure frustration. One shouted about finally putting his tax dollars to use before throwing a flaming lawn chair into the cockpit. The elite Bricks forces, trained on high-gravity worlds and experts in 6 fighting styles, were being defeated by humans in sweatpants. The commanders couldn't understand it. These Earthlings had no chain of command, no unified strategy. Their tactics were chaotic, improvised, often completely insane. Yet reports of alien casualties arrived daily, each more bewildering than the last. On day 47, an entire Bricks scout fleet was disabled by what appeared to be a satellite dish wired to a microwave and aimed by a teenager in a trailer park. Day 51 saw an armored patrol vehicle destroyed after an elderly man rolled a barrel of marbles down a hill toward it. The crew reported slipping noises and loud laughter before going silent. Perhaps most disturbing was the incident at grocery store. The 749, a Bricks rapid response unit, had landed outside a small food market expecting frightened, fleeing humans. Instead, they met fierce resistance from 7 middle-aged customers who had just discovered the store was out of canned chili. In the 7-minute battle that followed, one alien's plasma rifle was forcibly stuffed into a bag of frozen peas and detonated. Another was repeatedly tripped by a man wielding a mop and quoting lines from an old Earth film called Rambo Last Blood. None of the Bricks soldiers survived. The pattern was clear. Earth's trained military had fallen early, overwhelmed by alien technology, but the civilians had taken the invasion personally. They didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like neighbors whose recycling bins had been kicked over, like mechanics whose weekends had been interrupted. They weaponized everything: trash cans, ceiling fans, even stray cats. They didn't retreat, they got even. There was something deeper and more frightening about it too. No human civilian ever seemed surprised by the invasion, as if they had all been quietly waiting for a chance to release years of bottled-up frustration on something, anything. Their battle manual was a mix of do-it-yourself guides and dad jokes. Their weapons weren't manufactured but assembled in the middle of fights, with missing instructions and stubborn determination. "Explain to me again," Commander Zeth asked his war council, "how we were pushed out of a primary extraction zone by a chess club." "They called themselves the Knights of Checkmate, sir," the strategist replied, avoiding eye contact. "Their captain slapped one of our drone operators with a fish, frozen, very solid. We believe it was a tactical ambush from the seafood aisle." In another part of Earth, Bricks Commander Vex sat tied to a bar stool in a makeshift interrogation room inside what was formerly known as Rusty's Pub. His captors, 3 human men and a basset hound, were arguing over which snack food would work best as a lie detector. "What if his eyes twitch when we offer pork rinds?" said the one in camouflage shorts. No, said the balding one. "We already tried that. He flinched when I said karaoke night." "I think that's his weakness," Vex had survived the burning of Orion 4. He'd commanded orbital strikes over 3 moons, but nothing had prepared him for this psychological warfare. These humans weren't trained in interrogation. They didn't need to be. They just acted like themselves. And that confusion was enough to break hardened invaders. The war was no longer about territory or resources. It had become something worse, a campaign of absurdity. BRICS elite forces had abandoned dozens of cities, citing irreparable trauma after witnessing a man in a bathrobe defeat a mechanical walker with a weed blower and 2 cans of soda. Reports continued piling up. A mobile weapons lab overtaken by high school science teachers, a stealth cruiser jammed by GarageBand speakers, a BRICS sniper unit exposed by a flashlight taped to a drone operated by a 10-year-old. The humans had an endless supply of unpredictable fighters, mechanics, librarians, barbers, garbage collectors, each with their own approach. And worse, each seemed to find the entire war inconvenient rather than terrifying, a nuisance that interrupted their weekends. In the end, Earth didn't repel the BRICS collective with strength. They didn't have the numbers or the weapons, but they had something far more dangerous. Civilians with nothing to lose, too much free time, and a deep cultural love of proving others wrong. By day 73, BRICS Command stopped sending elite units entirely. Now they only used reconnaissance drones, and even those often returned damaged or psychologically compromised. The latest drone footage showed a bald human in slippers, calmly dismantling a gravity suppressor with a butter knife, while sipping from a mug labeled "World's Okayest Dad." In the background, teenagers launched soda bottles like missiles using a slingshot made from gym equipment. The collective's best engineers were still debating how such propulsion was even possible. High Chancellor Mako of the BRICS Collective called an emergency meeting. The footage played on a secure channel where field commanders, scientists and morale officers gathered to address what had officially been classified as the human problem. "They have no honor," one officer hissed. "No structure, no consistency. We've intercepted their communications. They argue over everything, even their own strategies." "Yes," Mako said slowly, "but they win, and their civilian kill ratios are unacceptable, outliers to every statistical model. A 73-year-old man just wiped out an entire plasma squad because they parked on his lawn." One scientist adjusted his holographic tablet. "We believe we've located the source of their resistance." A low murmur swept through the chamber. "It's not their biology. They're fragile, inefficient. And it's not their weapons. It's cultural, social. They've spent decades, perhaps centuries, in low-level conflict with each other. Bickering, complaining, competing for parking spaces, fast food orders, superiority in meaningless contests." "So they were training?" Mako asked. "Inadvertently, yes. Every human interaction appears to be a rehearsal for confrontation. Even their sports involve deception, aggression, and psychological manipulation." "They call it trash talk, Chancellor," the strategist added. "It's a verbal form of warfare, insult-based demoralization. One teenager caused an entire squad to flee by describing their armor as budget cosplay." There was silence then. "What is cosplay?" "We're not sure, but apparently it's very insulting in context." Mako's tendrils coiled with unease. "You're telling me our invasion failed because humans are mean and passive-aggressive?" "They're more than that," the scientist said. "They're petty, and they never let things go. One man declared war on our outpost because someone knocked over his grill. He waited 7 days, researched our routines, and then attacked with fireworks, lawn darts, and something called a leaf blower on steroids. It flattened an entire barracks. And, sir," the officer added, "he had no reinforcements, just rage and free time." Elsewhere on Earth, Sergeant Pax of the BRICS Psychological Combat Division had been captured in what locals called a hardware store. He had entered expecting resistance, Perhaps even an ambush. What he found was worse. The humans had booby-trapped the entire building with everyday tools, strung together with an ingenuity that defied logic. Aisle 7 was rigged with circular saws powered by shopping carts. Aisle 9 had a minefield of caltrops made from dismantled screwdrivers. In the paint section, he'd been hit with a gallon of eggshell white paint that rendered his cloaking suit useless and somehow made his eyes sting. Now Pax sat tied to a dolly cart, surrounded by grizzled old men in trucker hats. One poked him with a golf club. "Y'all think he understands us?" "No idea," another said. "But if he's smart, he'll realize we don't take kindly to galactic bullies." One approached with a roll of duct tape and a copy of Popular Mechanics. "We're going to fix your attitude with some light reading and a reminder that you do not mess with retirement communities." Pax winced, not from the tape, but from the inevitable humiliation he'd face if he returned to base. If he returned, in the suburbs of Westbrook, retired math teacher Marcus Reed was assembling what he proudly called the equalizer in his garage, a combination of leaf blower, barbecue igniter, and parts from an old water heater. His grandson. "You filmed the process on a phone. You think they'll come back to the neighborhood?" the boy asked. Marcus grinned. "I hope they do. Last time I only used the sprinklers. This time we're going to turn up the heat." Similar scenes played out across the continent. A bowling league in Wisconsin modified their ball return system to launch projectiles. A group of off-duty postal workers intercepted a brick supply drop and returned it with every crate mislabeled and filled with glitter. In Oregon, a chess club built a tactical command bunker out of a recycled school bus and filled it with booby traps named after famous chess masters. Everywhere the collective turned, humans were waiting, not in uniform or formation, but with furious creativity and endless spite. Retired tinkerers, bored teenagers, conspiracy theorists, disgruntled factory workers, none trained, but all prepared to cause maximum disruption with whatever they had on hand. And perhaps most dangerous of all, they enjoyed it. Morale among Brick's troops plummeted. Field commanders began requesting reassignment to asteroid mining duty. A memo circulated warning that psychological casualties now outnumbered physical injuries. One infamous broadcast showed an entire Bricks platoon begging for extraction after being lured into a trap by what appeared to be a sign offering free pizza. Back at Collective Command, High Chancellor Mako stared at the latest intelligence report. It wasn't even encrypted. It was a human news article. The headline read, "Local Grandpa Takes Out Alien Hover Tank with Shopping Cart Ramp." Beneath it, a grinning man held a scorched garden gnome. "We may be facing the first species in history," Mako muttered, "that treats interstellar war as a neighborhood inconvenience." "And what do we do about that?" his aide asked. Mako didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared out the viewport at the pale blue world below. "We learn, we adapt, or we prepare for a war fought not on battlefields, but in backyard barbecues, bingo halls and bowling alleys." He paused. "And someone figure out what a karate uncle is. The last unit said he moved like death itself." By day 109, the Collective's War Council had renamed Earth's campaign from Operation Pacify to Containment Scenario Echo Foxtrot, a bureaucratic way of saying, "We messed up, and now we're just trying to keep it from getting worse." It wasn't working. Entire Bricks divisions refused to deploy to Earth's surface without psychological counseling and hazard pay in advance. One squad commander was last seen screaming about something called a slip-and-slide minefield and vowing to retire early. Another, captured by a group of humans reenacting a historical battle in full costume, was returned unharmed, but insisted he had seen ghosts and tasted chili with time-warping properties. Resistance cells appeared across the planet, each more absurd and effective than the last. A motorcycle club in Nevada outfitted their bikes with electromagnetic disruptors stolen from a downed cruiser. A retiree from Florida trained squirrels. to steal power cores. In New Jersey, a pizza delivery driver single-handedly hijacked a brick scout ship by bribing the crew with garlic knots and a bootleg movie. The tipping point came not with a battle, but with a broadcast. It was supposed to be a routine BRICS address transmitted across occupied zones to show dominance. But instead of fear or silence, the humans responded with a compilation of viral videos. Footage showed them dismantling drones with lawn chairs, disabling mechanical walkers with slingshots, and using shopping carts as siege weapons. The final clip was of a BRICS commander being chased off a suburban lawn by a man wielding a garden hose and yelling, "This is my Saturday." The message was clear. Earth civilians weren't defending their planet. They were defending their routines, their neighborhoods, their hobbies, their right to yell at squirrels in peace. The collective tried a final offensive, an orbital bombardment targeting major urban centers. But by then, Earth's civilian network had evolved into something terrifyingly efficient. Amateur astronomers detected the ship launches before they left lunar orbit. Radio hobbyists jammed targeting frequencies. Retired engineers hijacked the guidance systems and redirected the missiles harmlessly into the ocean, where, incidentally, they triggered an unintentional alliance with several large and extremely territorial whale pods. It was over. High Chancellor Mako stood before the Galactic Tribunal, his body bruised, his pride broken. "We did not lose to Earth's military," he confessed. "We lost to their barbershop quartets, their little league coaches, their chess clubs, and their weird, angry uncles. We underestimated what happens when a planet full of creatively irritated civilians decides they've had enough." Earth was declared a high-risk cultural anomaly and placed under a galactic no-contact order. Collective ships were recalled, a full quarantine was enacted, and new recruits were shown footage of Earth resistance as part of their psychological screening. Back on Earth, life returned to what humans considered normal. The mechanical walkers were recycled into playground equipment. Former BRICS gear was repurposed into beer coolers and go-karts. The man known only as Owen with the chainsaw went back to his hardware store job without ever speaking a word about his heroics. But on quiet evenings across the stars, seasoned soldiers still speak in hushed tones about the Earth campaign, about the time an empire was brought to its knees, not by strategy or might, but by the collective fury, ingenuity, and absolute stubbornness of humanity's most unpredictable force, its everyday people.